Hey everybody, welcome back to History 371, Women in America, from the Civil War to the present. In part 4 of Contemporary America, we're going to focus on reproductive politics since 2020. This map here that you can see now is one that is also available to you on Canvas this week. And I encourage you to take a look and click on the state or territory to get more information than you can see right now. So recent America has witnessed some very important developments in reproductive politics. In 2022, the Supreme Court of the United States, SCOTUS, made a decision in a case called Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, known for short as Dobbs. In effect, SCOTUS determined that there is no constitutional right to an abortion. This was a reversal of the 1973 Supreme Court case Roe versus Wade, which had made legal abortion the law of the land. It therefore returned control over abortion to individual states, the status that had been the case before the case of Roe v. Wade. As you already know, before Roe v. Wade, many states severely restricted, curtailed, and in some cases entirely banned abortion. So in the aftermath of the Dobbs case, this has meant some really important and significant changes to reproductive politics and reproductive health care more generally, and frankly, healthcare more generally. In the immediate aftermath of the case, some states enacted new restrictions on abortion through so-called trigger laws. They're called that because any Supreme Court action would trigger them. So basically, it reinstated pre-Roe restrictions on abortion. Other states very quickly passed brand new laws limiting and in some cases prohibiting abortion under almost all circumstances. Something that's changed since Roe is that medication abortions have become much more important than surgical abortions. Currently, about half of all abortions are medication abortions. These are generally managed at home. An individual takes medication, manages their abortion at home, and only seeks emergency care, health care in a clinic or emergency room in the case of rare but potentially health-threatening situations. However, medication abortions now encounter new restrictions. Many states have adopted what historians call neo-Comstock laws. Remember Comstock? Way back in 1873, the original Comstock laws prohibited the federal males from advertising or carrying information on a variety of subjects, including anything having to do with sex and reproduction, but also including information about both contraception and abortion. What that means for neo-Comstock laws is that it has become or could become illegal to mail abortion pills to patients. To give you just one example of this, in 2022, shortly after Dobbs, this happened in Nebraska. A woman and her daughter faced criminal charges after the woman counseled her daughter about how to terminate a pregnancy using medication. In this particular case, the daughter was using the medication outside of the 10-week window approved by the FDA for medication abortions. But new laws and/or proposed laws go beyond that by making it illegal to provide abortion pills through the mail at all. Because many individual states have now drastically limited any form of abortion, surgical or medication abortions, that makes it more difficult for people to gain access to medication abortions. And if they find it difficult or impossible to cross state lines, receiving abortion medication by mail is one of the ways to ensure access to abortion care. So this is a very significant development as well. Abortion bans obviously affect abortion, but it's important to recognize that abortion bans really affect women's health care more generally. There are new cases in the news about this all the time, but I'm just going to highlight 3 of them here. In Texas in 2023, a white woman who was carrying a fetus with a fatal condition So the pregnancy was not viable, right? It was not going to result in a living birth. Had to leave the state to obtain an abortion to save her own life because she could not obtain one in her home state. Now, this woman was white. She also had the financial wherewithal to leave the state. Abortion bans obviously affect all women's health care, but they especially affect the health care of people of color and people who are less privileged economically. And so the next two cases deal, both of them, with African American women. In Ohio in late 2023, a Black woman was denied medical care for a health crisis related to a non-viable pregnancy. So she went to the emergency room and then they sent her home because there was some question about whether or not her pregnancy was within or beyond the time frame that Ohio had established in which women could seek legal hospital-based abortions. After she went home, she experienced a miscarriage there. It sounded like a truly horrific situation in which she miscarried into her toilet, and then she was charged with abuse of a corpse. I believe in this case the charge was eventually dismissed, but there are more and more laws coming on the books that suggest that women who experience this kind of crisis might not only have to experience a miscarriage alone and without health care, but then also have to experience a criminal trial. Of course, the worst outcome is for an individual to actually die. So in Georgia in 2024, a Black woman named Amber Thurman, whose name I'll come back to in a moment, obtained a medication abortion. In her home state, Georgia, she could not obtain a surgical abortion, and she was unable to travel to a neighboring state where abortion was permitted. She happened to be a healthcare worker, by the way. So she got medication mailed to her across state lines, took it at home, and then she was one of those people who experienced those rare but life-threatening situations when a medication abortion goes wrong. In effect, she experienced an incomplete miscarriage, which results in sepsis, which is an extensive infection that affects every organ in the body and causes a massive shutdown of every single organ in your body. The way you stop that from happening, sepsis, is to do a surgical abortion, a D&C, dilation and curettage, is what D&C stands for. So this woman, because she was experiencing an incomplete miscarriage and she was unable to obtain a D&C in her home state, actually died as a result. These issues came up in the 2024 presidential election. During that race, the Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and the Republican candidate Donald Trump both made abortion access an election issue, but on opposite sides. Trump claimed that some states were killing babies after birth, while Harris denounced policies like the Georgia abortion ban that led to Amber Thurman's death. Trump's subsequent victory further jeopardizes abortion access because the Trump-affiliated Project 2025 promises, among other things, to reinstate the 1873 Comstock Act. The Comstock Act, although it's had sort of been chipped away at by various other subsequent laws, has never actually been repealed. It's still on the books. Historians sometimes refer to it as a zombie act because it's been not enforced, but it is still on the books. Project 2025 forthrightly says that they intend to reinstate the Comstock Act, specifically by revoking the Food and Drug Administration's approval of abortion medication and/or by prosecuting people for shipping or transporting abortion pills or supplies. In addition, some states are now looking at prosecuting people for transporting people across state lines for purposes of obtaining a reproduction by reclassifying that activity as a form of human trafficking. You have a copy of Project 2025 posted on Canvas. It is more than 900 pages long, and nobody expects you to read the whole thing. I've indicated on Canvas where you can find the reference to the Comstock Act. Keyword search won't bring it up because they don't call it that by name, but that is what they're talking about, and you can look at it for yourself. You can also find more about the Project 2025 stance on reproductive rights by using keyword searches like reproduction, contraception, abortion, and so forth and so on. Use variants as well, right? Not just contraception, but also contraceptive, for example. Back to the 2024 election. Also during that election, 10 states put reproductive rights on the ballot. 7 of those states, including Montana, enacted protections for abortion access. Montana has a very strong protection to the right to privacy in its constitution, the state constitution, which was enacted in 1972 and was very much shaped by women activists in the state, particularly women who were active in business and professional women's organization and the American Association of University Women, among other groups. But even though that's true for the Montana Constitution, which has a lot of incredible protections actually for civil rights, you should take a look. Montana also enacted a particular referendum that said that abortion access is protected for all people who might become pregnant. On the other hand, 3 states did not enact protections for abortion access. In addition, 1 state passed a new anti-abortion measure. Nebraska prohibited abortions after the first trimester entirely, as opposed to the 3-trimester system set up under Roe, right? Which, if you think back a couple of weeks before you're probably watching this, sort of had increased restrictions in each trimester, but never officially completely banned abortion. Nebraska passed a measure prohibiting abortions entirely after the first trimester. The results for the reproductive rights issue and the presidential election are a little unclear because many voters split the ticket, voting for abortion access in their home state while also voting for Trump. This is, for example, what happened in Montana, which swung solidly for Trump in the presidential election, but also swung solidly in the direction of protecting abortion access. However, since the election, many states, including Montana, have either adopted or proposed new restrictions on abortion, including, as I mentioned, prosecuting those who procure or assist with an abortion as criminals. And this includes what I was saying before about classifying people who transport people or pills across state borders as drug traffickers and or human traffickers. Ironically, using a category of crime that was originally championed by feminist activists, right, who wanted to criminalize human trafficking, and now using it against women. Okay, this is the end of this section on reproductive rights. Stay tuned for more information on the next segment on the Trump 2.0, as I'm calling it, Trump's second term, and what that means. Bye.